Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories / Coffee with Ken, and this is my early show. You know, yesterday actually, it wasn't yesterday. It was Tuesday. Wednesday. The District Attorney of Kern County, Cynthia Zimmer, held a press conference, and she told us some shocking news in regards to Orrin and Orson West. And we've all been following this case since the boys had been reported missing. And I believe that was December 21st, 2020. So it's been quite a long time. And the news that she told us was that a full 3 months prior to the boys being reported missing, she believed that they were dead, that they were in fact deceased. I'm going to play a little bit of what she said in the press conference so you could hear it coming right from her mouth. And this was a little bit shocking to most of us that have been following this case.
No avail. They were not located. 1 week later, crucial information came to light that necessitated the involvement of the Bakersfield Police Department and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. Law enforcement worked diligently, hundreds of hours in the next 12 months, looking for the boys. This morning, I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing. However, I am pleased to announce that this week, the Kern County Grand Jury indicted Trizel and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West. The indictment charges 5 counts. The first count is murder. Charges them both with murder, with the victim being Orrin West. The second count charges murder, with the victim being Orson West. The third count charges felony child abuse against the person of Orrin West. The fourth count charges child abuse against the person of Orson West. And the fifth count charges false report of an emergency. Naturally, the first 2 counts carry the most time in state prison, murder. It is charged as murder in the second degree. That carries 15 years to life, but with 2 victims, the potential penalty or the maximum possible penalty, if convicted, is 30 years to life for each defendant, Trizel and Jacqueline West. Now, the grand jury indictment is a formal charging document, and we followed a process in charging them before the grand jury, and that was the district attorney requested that the grand jury convene to hear evidence regarding an indictment that we presented them. The district attorney's office then presented information to the grand jury, and the grand jury found there was sufficient evidence to hold Trizel and Jacqueline West responsible for these murders, and they returned what was called a true bill. So oftentimes we call it they were indicted, but what they did is returned a true bill on the indictment. Department 1 Superior Court judge issued warrants for the arrest of the defendants, and they were arrested last night at about 7 p.m. in Kern County. They are currently in the Kern County Jail waiting for an arraignment on the indictment, which will be tomorrow. There will be no preliminary hearing in this case because an indictment is a substitute for a preliminary hearing, and this case will proceed directly to trial. The announcement of an indictment in this case probably raises a lot of questions about the facts of the case and what you and the public would like to know. I'm not permitted to go over the facts of the case in this case, but there is something that I'd like to discuss because the facts of the case are to be what we produce in the jury trial, because we want both the prosecution and the defense to have a fair trial in this case. However, one of the questions that I'm sure you would like to know is, have the bodies of Orrin and Orson been found? And the answer to that is no.
So, folks, I'm going to stop there. I'm very impressed with this District Attorney, Cynthia Zimmer. She gave very concise, succinct, to the point, as much information as she could give without compromising the investigation. And one of the things, the questions that everyone has is, someone asked me today in the chat from yesterday, did Trizel and Jacqueline know that there was a grand jury proceeding? And the answer to that is no. Grand jury proceedings are secretive, and they don't disclose to the public that they're the information that they're seeking. They don't disclose to the public the witnesses they have interviewed. Witnesses that are interviewed are told not to talk about their testimony in front of the grand jury. The second big question that she answered there is, have the bodies of Orrin and Orson West been recovered? And the answer to that, of course, we know now is no. The bodies have not been recovered. And of course, this is a tragic thing, which leads us to the next question. Can the district attorney get a conviction on this case without recovering the bodies? And that is a very, very interesting question. And the answer, of course, is yes, she can. And it's been done before, not just in Kern County, but in other jurisdictions across the United States. It's been done numerous times. So that, can you imagine if they weren't able to get murder convictions without recovering the bodies? Everyone would, of course, get rid of bodies in murder cases. So that is one of the reasons why, of course, and you may ask, another good question and a big question is then, how do they present this evidence, and how do they get a murder conviction? I'm just putting up on the screen, we have that billboard missing Orrin and Orson, and the reward was up to $122,000. I'm just, I know this case is very emotional for a lot of folks on YouTube, a lot of folks that have been following this just all over the country, all over the world. I know Duty Ron, who's another content creator on YouTube. He's made this case very personal. He in fact, he partially paid for this billboard. He contributed to this billboard that in the hopes that these two young boys would be found. And, we were told Wednesday that in fact was not going to happen, because they discovered, again, just think about this. They discovered this 1 week after, I believe the date they were reported missing was December 21st, 2020. So they discovered, the investigators from Bakersfield Police Department and the district attorney's office in Kern County discovered that the boys were in fact deceased 1 week after they were reported missing. So just think about the amount. A picture on the screen, you're seeing Trizel and Jacqueline at their arraignment, and that was on Thursday, of course, and they were arraigned, and they both pled not guilty at the arraignment. So what you may ask then, how is the district attorney's office going to get a conviction against these two? Of course, they invoked counsel early on in this investigation, which that means is that they cannot be interviewed by law enforcement. They cannot be interviewed by the district attorney. So when you think about it, they have to produce what's called direct and circumstantial evidence. And I'll read you the definition of what direct evidence. Direct evidence is evidence that, if believed, directly proves a fact. Usually a criminal case, direct evidence will be eyewitness testimony regarding something that was actually observed. Now, direct evidence, of course, is usually very, very strong evidence since it's the testimonial evidence of someone who is a potential witness in the case. So it's someone was saying, I was just about to read something in the chat and I realized it had nothing to do with what I was just talking about. So I'll hold that till the end. Yeah. So the other thing is circumstantial evidence. We talk about circumstantial evidence, and circumstantial evidence is a picture, of course, of the boys on the screen. Circumstantial evidence is from which inferences are drawn. A person may infer the existence or non-existence of another fact. For example, a good you could see someone come out from outside and they could be all wet, and you would infer that it was raining outside. But does that necessarily mean it was raining outside? No, not really. Someone could have poured a bucket of water on them or something, even though that's sort of silly. But so that's you're inferring based on certain facts. But circumstantial evidence, which a lot of this case I'm sure will hinge upon, can be very, very powerful evidence, extremely powerful evidence, because when it's piled up on top and it gets higher and higher and higher, it can be very powerful, especially when juries hear, circumstantial evidence in this case can just be the behavior of this couple, their behavior when they reported these boys missing. I'm going to show you a little file tape of this, and to me, it speaks volumes about them. Because when not that I'm an expert in body language, but I can read body language, and I think most of us can. And when you look at this here, you tell me, what does it say?
One house, I came back out, I didn't see him now.
Trizel West details the moment his two adopted boys, 3-year-old Orson and 4-year-old Orrin, went missing Monday night from their California City home. Moments before, West says he was gathering wood to start a fire.
I opened up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea that our youngest two go outside and play with chalk on the back patio.
Shortly after, West says he no longer saw the boys on the patio. He asked his wife, Jacqueline, if she saw them. She said no. That's when he says panic set in.
I realized that I left the gate open, and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. Once that hadn't pan out, I got in the van. I looked down the street, both directions. It was getting dark, getting cold.
West said he then called the police within minutes. Since then, California City Police, the FBI, and the Kern County Sheriff's Office have been investigating. Police searched the couple's home Tuesday night, then interviewed the couple at police headquarters. Meantime, multiple search efforts were launched, which continued Wednesday, including with the help of the boys' biological mother, Ryan Dean. She says she's worked hard to get her life on track and wanted to get custody of her boys back eventually, but now she thinks that will never happen and is blaming the adoptive parents.
They did something. I feel like they did something and they know something. They did something, and I feel my kids is somewhere around here. I can feel it, and I feel like they're in the house, and I feel like they did something.
Trizel and Jacqueline say they understand the frustration.
She thinks you guys did something.
And that's understandable.
What's your response to that?
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies. That's it.
Some residents and family members of the boys would also get involved during the interview.
Y'all was supposed to take care of my nephew.
So, folks, as you could see, we talk about I would think that this tape will absolutely be used in the trial. However, as we said, the district attorney reported in her press conference that a week after they reported them missing, they had found out that the boys had been dead for approximately 3 months. So it's just incredible. It's some of the other actions of Trizel, like searching for the boys for approximately 10 minutes. I mean, who would search for their boys for 10 minutes? Two little kids, 4 and 3 years old. I still be searching, So that was very strange too. And that's a picture of the district attorney on the scene, Cynthia Zimmer. So some of your questions are very good questions in the chat. How, in fact, do they get a conviction for murder without a body being recovered? And again, as I was talking about, was direct and circumstantial evidence. And some of the other things in this case, the evidence they have, obviously, there were 4 other kids in this household, 2 biological and 2 other adopted kids. After this occurred, they were taken into custody by Child Protective Services. That is probably the biggest part of the case, is that they were interviewed at great length. And not only did they probably give up the parents as killing these kids, but they apparently took part in the abuse of these 2 poor little boys. It's just, you can't even imagine the horror of this. So that type of evidentiary evidence and testimonial evidence by these kids is going to be, the smoking gun, just the smoking gun to this case, where it's such strong evidence. And, some of the things I wrote down in regards to the evidence is, of course, the parents' reaction to the missing. Their reaction, when you watch that tape, they could not look straight ahead. And even though this was sort of the beginning of the COVID pandemic, they were outside. There was really no need to be wearing those masks outside, but I think those masks served mostly to attempt to hide their feelings. It didn't work because Trizel's body language, and I said this yesterday, is with his arms folded in front of him the whole time. Someone in the chat said, "Oh, he was cold." Come on, don't be ridiculous. That's a clear sign of being defensive, of crossing your arms. And he held his arms crossed the entire interview. And that is and as I said, I'm no body language genius, but you don't have to be a genius to see someone that's folding their arms in front of them as being defensive. Yvette Burnett, how were they able to adopt without the biological parents consenting or knowing about it? Don't you need signatures? I'm just so confused. I don't have any information that we saw on the screen was the mother of the boys, and of course she signed off on the adoption, but she apparently was. I don't know what her specific problems were, why she gave up her boys, but she was hoping at some point to get her life together and get them back. I don't know her whole history. Marilyn Manetta, good afternoon, Bill. Have a wonderful weekend. This is terrible. How could anyone do this to a child? Were they foster parents or adoptive parents? Apparently, they were adoptive parents. These boys were adopted by them. They weren't foster. I have a lot of questions, too, in regards to that haven't specifically been revealed in this case. Like, I never understood what Trizel, did he have a job? What did he do for a living? That was never, that really never came out. Another big part of this case is, of course, results of interviews. And there's other people in this case that were lying about seeing these boys. If they were missing, or if they were in fact dead 3 months before this, then I believe the grandparents said they saw them around Thanksgiving. That would have been impossible because they weren't alive. So people have asked me also in the chat, will other people be prosecuted for this case? And my answer to that is the district attorney, Cynthia Zimmer, will be laser focused on getting a conviction on Trizel and Jacqueline. The other family members may possibly be called as witnesses. They may be called up to the stand knowing that they're going to perjure themselves. And at a later date, they can be prosecuted. But I don't see the district attorney's office focusing on other people in this case until they secure convictions against Trizel and Jacqueline. I think that that's the most important thing. Michelina Serino, she's focusing on his leads so she does not make any mistakes. Obviously, this is a rehearsed thing. You're talking about Trizel and Jacqueline. Yes. I mean, Lisa Irwin, yes, classic and sincere. However, their legal names still, which was also on the information from the court, the indictments, was of course Orrin and Orson West. So I appreciate calling them by that other name. However, their legal names it was still Orrin and Orson. Rebecca H., I would sure hope so. So the grandparents have guilty knowledge. Obviously, if the grandma said she's seen the boys the 19th of December, which is an absolute lie if the boys were gone 3 months prior. Absolutely, Rebecca. But what we're looking at and what the district attorney's office, of course, is going to focus on is getting Trizel and Jacqueline convicted. And if other people go down during the course of this investigation, if they choose to pursue prosecution against them, they'll proceed after that. But the two most important people are, of course, Trizel and Jacqueline, that the district attorney wants to get a conviction. Bodies not recovered, of course, does not preclude a prosecution for murder. This week on either Tuesday or Wednesday night, I'm going to have a former prosecutor from the Manhattan DA's office. His name is Dan Bibb. He did 26 years with the Manhattan DA's office. He's going to come on the show. I'm not sure if it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday night. And he prosecuted the Birnbaum case, and Birnbaum killed his wife. And she was missing since 1985, and they didn't prosecute the case till the year 2000. And he apparently killed his wife, and he was a surgeon. He was a medical doctor, a surgeon. He strangled her, put her in a duffel bag, threw her in the back trunk of his car, drove to a private airport, put her on his plane, drove over the Atlantic Ocean, and dumped her in the ocean. Her body has never been recovered. And that was the whole premise of the prosecution. However, they never, ever recovered the body, but they did get a conviction. And Dr. Birnbaum is now eligible for parole. And at his most recent parole hearing, admitted that he, in fact, had killed his wife, and he outlined exactly how he did it. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. My early show, Coffee with Cannon. If you're not subscribed to our channel, please go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. And if you'd like to support us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And you can also join us on a part of our YouTube family. You can see all the folks in the chat with the green font. They're members of our YouTube, and we really appreciate their support. Country Girl, yeah, poor innocent boys. They just needed love and care. That's 100% sure. That's for sure, you know. Pauline Buckles, yes, and I'm going to have Dan Bibb on next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday night, and I'll find out today, and I'll put a flyer out as to when. And he's going to talk about the Birnbaum case, and he's going to talk about, from the perspective of a prosecutor, how do we get a conviction on a murder case without recovering the body? You know, and that's a question. I mean, on the screen, I have a picture of Trizel and his wife Jacqueline, and you know, with the underneath it says, "Where are the boys?" And just in that picture itself, it catches a lot in their persona. It catches a lot in their body language, and they obviously had a lot to hide because they were hiding a murder. You know, and the fact that this happened 3 months before their reporting this was on December 21st, 2020. It's sort of disturbing. Some of the other factors, evidentiary factors, are: when was the last time that the boys were seen alive? These are some of the facts that the investigators will have from speaking to people who saw them. Did the boys ever attend any nursery school? Did the boys ever go see a doctor? Those are the type of things that we can develop a timeline. But it seems like the district attorney is pretty confident that they were killed 3 months before this. However, they're not going to, as I said, the grand jury proceedings are secretive. So they're not going to reveal that. Rebecca H., family member who has a YouTube channel, has said that they have an eyewitness that Philip, the grandfather, helped remove the seat from the van when Trizel beat the boys bad enough to wet themselves. That's like all these horrible little pieces of fact. They'll come out during this case. It's what helps build a circumstantial case, a circumstantial evidence case. Sharon Marshall, I'm going to read what you wrote. Child trafficking ring. Apparently, someone in the family worked for CPS. Trizel and Jacqueline seemed able to adopt children so easily. Other children adopted, forced by them, allegedly missing. Sharon, I don't know any other children that they adopted that were in fact missing. If that is the case, we undoubtedly will find out about it. But what we're talking about is this case, and that's the most important thing. Marlene Barone, I would hope that if anyone connected to this and knows where the boys were buried comes forward now for the boys to be properly laid to rest. Now, one of the things was when Trizel and Jacqueline were arraigned, they both pled not guilty. So since there is no death penalty in California, they don't have that to hold over their head. Like if they were convicted in a state that had the death penalty, they would maybe plea bargain it to life in prison by saying, if you tell us where you buried the boys, we'll make your sentence life in prison instead of the death penalty. But they don't have that to bargain with because there is no death penalty in California. Marilyn Landis, she had no transparency in that interview, so apparent of their guilt. Yeah, it looks that way. But one of the things that you guys may be asking also is a thing called discovery, and I take for granted that most people know what that is. But if you don't know, I'm going to explain it to you. At some point, everything that the prosecution has, everything they have of an evidentiary nature, they have to turn over to the defense so that the defense can attempt to create, of course, a defense against the prosecutorial evidence and witnesses. When discovery is turned over is up to the prosecutor. Defense attorneys complain all the time that, they'll say, we're going to start the case tomorrow. And the day before, the prosecutor hands them, 10 huge folders full of evidentiary material, which they cannot possibly go over in one day. So, of course, they ask for a furtherance and push the case up for 2 or 3 months so they can, in fact, go over all the evidence. Alicia Lloyd, hi, Bill. Can you suspect what kind of direct and circumstantial evidence made the DA say the boys were dead 3 months before being reported missing? Alicia, I think, yes, I can. I think that the evidence is the testimony of the 4 kids, that not only were the little boys killed, but they took part in it, which is just horrendous to imagine that these other boys took part in killing their little brothers. It's beyond horrendous. It's totally, totally horrendous that this could have happened. But that's the type of circumstantial evidence I believe they have. I believe they also have, of course, computer evidence. They're going to have cell phone evidence, text message evidence, evidence of people who have and haven't seen the boys. When was the last time the boys were seen? That's very important evidence, right? Who was the last person to see them? Many people, but some people lied that they saw them around Thanksgiving. That was impossible. They were dead, which the district attorney's office knows with their evidence that they're not revealing right now, that they know that to be a lie, and they know that the boys were in fact dead. I think the most important evidence, direct and circumstantial evidence, is the testimony by the other children. And when you get evidence of that nature, you can also verify it and run with the evidence and connect the dots to other pieces of evidence. I spoke about tracking electronic devices, cell phones, potentially the car. Where was the car? It seems that the murders occurred in Bakersfield, not California, California City. It seems like it happened in Bakersfield because the police department in Bakersfield is the lead agency. And of course, the district attorney in Kern County is the one that opened up the grand jury, and that's where the prosecution is going to take place. So we spoke about even their computers. They would check their computers, of course, their hard drives, what kind of communications were over. Were they talking about or planning anything? What were they searching? Were they searching anything that would implicate them in trying to make a body decay or trying to get rid of a body without it being discovered? And again, as I said, the most important thing is the interviews with the other children. I think that's probably the smoking gun, and that's the part I think that this entire case is probably predicated on is the testimonial evidence that the other four children supplied. And as I said, once you have testimonial evidence, you can act upon the things that these boys told you. And of course, a deeper dive into the adoption, a deeper dive into what Trizel and Jacqueline were doing in the days and months prior to them reporting the boys missing. All of that stuff is super, super important. And as I said, I'm going to have a district attorney on next week. His name is Dan Bibb, and he's going to talk about what is the necessary things to do in a prosecution in order to secure a conviction in a homicide case with no body recovered. Very, very, very important. Again, on the screen, we have the picture of those two boys. And this was the haunting billboard that was over the road in California City, which people had been looking at for 16 months in regards to these two missing boys. Again, Duty Ron ran with this case a great deal. He contributed a lot of money to the billboard and to trying to find these two boys and raise awareness and to get people involved in the search. I mean, just think about all the people that volunteered to do the search while these two on the screen now, Trizel and Jacqueline, were lying about the fact that these boys were missing when in fact they were dead. I mean, how does that make everyone? I mean, it's just horrendous. Everyone feel that, put their heart and soul in hope and prayers that these boys would be recovered when they were just they were dead all along. 3 months prior to December 21st, 2020, they had in fact been deceased. And that's according to the prosecutor, Cynthia Zimmer. Very able prosecutor, very smart prosecutor. She seems like she really knows her stuff. And her office has had, in Kern County, has had 2 successful murder prosecutions without bodies being recovered. So it's not something that that's never happened in Kern County. As I said, it's happened all over this country, and I'm going to bring in former Assistant District Attorney Dan Bibb on Tuesday or Wednesday night. He's from Manhattan County, was a Manhattan DA. That's New York City for over 26 years. One of the best prosecutors I ever met. So it's that's the answer to all of that. Did Barrel and Landis, did they both have military backgrounds? I think Trizel was military. Marilyn, I don't know the answer to that question. Be kind. Same thing they did to those babies should be done to those monsters or worse, these defenseless babies. Oh my God. We agree. We totally agree. It's just crazy. It's just totally crazy that this could have happened. And we always look for reasons why this happened, and could it be prevented in the future? And hopefully you can prevent this in the future by vetting the people that become adoptive parents as well as foster parents. And that's, I can't Monday morning quarterback on that, but that's, and as I said, I know Duty Ron, my compadre, my fellow NYPD detective. He's covered this case more than anyone else, and he put a lot into this case. We just now hope and pray that the district attorney gets a conviction on these two, because if anyone deserves it, is these two. Just think of how devious, diabolical, just how they hid all this stuff, and how they tried to send law enforcement on a wild goose chase. Other people searching for these two boys, little cute little boys, 4 and 3 years old, Orrin and Orson West. Just incredibly, it doesn't get. Look, I worked a lot of child murders as a boss, a sergeant on Manhattan North Homicide Squad, and there's nothing more difficult than a child murder. It just rips your heart out, and it's a tough thing to deal with. It really is, and hopefully this DA Cynthia Zimmer was going to get a conviction on these two, and that's all we can hope for right now. That's all we can hope and pray. The boys are no longer with us, and I know a lot of you folks hoped and prayed that they would be recovered alive, and we all did, and we were all hoping the same thing. So again, folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories / Coffee with Cannon. If you're not subscribed to us, please go on our YouTube, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, give us a thumbs up, and if you want to join our Patreon or our Moonlight View, thanks, as a new member. I reached one person in the chat. Thank you, Moonlight View, for becoming a new member of the Police Off the Cuff family. So, folks, I'll see you Monday night when I have Tom Delgado on, who is a New York City comic tour guide, and he's going to tell us all about the darker side of New York City in his work as a tour guide. This case is we're going to continue to follow this case, of course, and I just want to thank all you guys for listening and coming in to watch Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Folks, have a great day and stay safe.
One episode, just ain't enough.